So they have two codes. They have one where it gives you passage into the flotilla, and they have another one where if the Quarian that's on board the ship that wants to enter, if they're being manipulated by someone else, let's say by point blank, like someone has a gun to them, and they're like, say the code, or we're gonna kill you. They use a different code. They actually have a different code so that the flotilla knows I'm being forced, and they're gonna hijack the flotilla. So the flotilla has nothing else. When they hear that code being said instead of the other one, they have to shoot the ship down. So the Quarian knows that they're gonna die, but it's to save the flotilla. Quarian spirituality is actually not mentioned that much, but you could tell that they are spiritual in some way, that they do have this religion that seems to revolve around worshiping or considering in a very, very respectful way their ancestors. And this reminds me a lot of, if you've played Dragon Age, it reminds me a lot of the dwarves. You know how the dwarves really respect their ancestors, and it's almost like worshiping their ancestors is like their religion. So the Quarians are kind of like that, where they hold their ancestors in high regard. And actually, in the past, like before the Geth went against the Quarians, the Quarians were actually known to get the personality imprint. And I'm thinking of the Protheans, like they did with Vigil, like that, where you get somebody's personality imprint and they put it on a VI. This is what the Quarians would do too. And they actually were trying to make them like more sophisticated so that it could almost be like they're preserving this ancestor forever. And but when the Geth took over, they completely destroyed all of their ancestral data, everything, all the VIs they had, they just destroyed it all. So that's completely gone. And you can tell when like when Tally says Keela, or Keela Salai, when they say Keela Salai, that is almost like nobody really knows. Keela is kind of like someone saying God, or something like that. Keela Salai is like saying peace be with you. So Keela, some people say that it's probably some ancestor, a name of someone that they hold highly, like they regard highly, like someone that they really worship, or to some other figure, some religious figure. So now let's talk about Ascension, the novel, the second Mass Effect novel. The Quarians have a pretty big part in this book. The way that the flotilla becomes involved in Ascension is the first humans to ever step foot in the flotilla were Kali Sanders, Jillian Grayson, Paul Grayson's adopted daughter, and Hendel Mitra. Hendel was the head of security in the school where Kali worked, the School for Biotic Children, the Ascension Project. That's where he worked. So him and Kali worked together. He really grew attached to Jillian, the girl. I think she was like 13 or something. The biotic girl. She had problems. She was like autistic. She was very powerful when it came to her biotics. And Hendel was also a biotic, so he worked with Jillian a few times. And Jillian was like a Cerberus lab rat. Cerberus was testing on her undercover without them knowing. And when Hendel and Kali found out that Cerberus was doing this to her, they took Jillian out of the school and they just left to try to find a safe place for Jillian, because Cerberus was trying to get her. Paul Grayson was trying to get a hold of his daughter. This was when Paul Grayson still worked for the Elusive Man. And the Elusive Man was like, we can't lose this girl, I want her. And Paul Grayson was like, I can't lose my daughter, I want her too. So he was after her. And the only place that they had to go, Kali, Jillian, and Hendel, was the Quarian fleet. This was the only place that they found refuge in. And the way that they got in there, because remember I was telling you the whole code thing, the way they were able to get in there was by another Quarian. I think his name was Lem, and he was a Quarian on his pilgrimage. and he was trying to find something to do for his pilgrimage, something for the fleet. And when he found out that Kali was out there, because he found Kali and all them, and he was like, wait a minute, this is Kali Sanders. This is the scientist that knows about AI, that knows about the Reapers, that knows about the Geth, that knows about Saren, that Saren was able to control the Geth. And there he was like, I could take her to the flotilla and she could be useful. Because, the Admiralty Board would of course want to talk to her about what she knows about AI. And the Geth and the Reapers. So Lem takes them to the flotilla and tells them, I've got Kali Sanders here. And when they hear that name, they're like, oh my god. So they let them in, but they leave them on their own ship. They let them into the flotilla, but they don't board them immediately. They leave them on their own ship for a few days while they discuss whether they are going to let them on the ship or not. When they do, they're like, you guys have to wear your enviro suits or your space suits at all times. So they do. They let them on, and they interrogate Kali. They're like, what do you know about the Reapers? Could we use a Reaper to control the Geth? And the Quarians were actually thinking of doing this. They were thinking, if it was possible, they would get a Reaper to control the Geth. And I was like, whoa. That's just a no-go, dude. And Kali wasn't able to give them many answers. She was just like, I don't know that much. Like, I don't know that much about the Geth, and I don't know if that's possible, and I don't think it's a good idea, that type of thing. Anyways, while they were talking, the flotilla gets attacked by Cerberus. How did they get through the military with their whole code thing? How did they get through? They got through. Cerberus got through because Cerberus was using a Quarian informer. His name was Golo. And Golo was an exile, a Quarian exile, because he was actually going to turn in a bunch of Quarians as subjects to the collectors. So he basically betrayed the Quarians, and then he was exiled. And he was on Omega doing a bunch of underground bad stuff. And they ended up attacking this these Quarians, and one of the Quarians, his name was Hilo. He was the pilot of a ship called the Cinead, and the Cinead was a scout ship for the bigger ship on the flotilla called the Edina. When Golo and Cerberus attack these Quarians, they kill everyone, and Hilo is the only one that is left alive. But they capture him to get some information out of him. And when Hilo sees Golo, he recognizes him, and he's like, you traitor, blah, blah, blah. And he starts saying about all this stuff to him. And Golo breaks his helmet. He breaks it. He makes a hole in it. And he gets sick. Hilo gets really, really sick. He gets a fever, and he gets all these infections because he's got a hole in his helmet. He gets a little delusional, and he's just muttering a bunch of stuff. And Cerberus is like, damn it, we needed to question him, and now we can't get anything out of him. So they torture him. They torture him really, really bad to try to get something out of him. So where they were holding Hilo, they were also holding Kali and Hendel. Lem breaks in and attacks the place to get Kali because he's like, I need her for my pilgrimage. And so while they're interrogating Hilo, they get attacked, and they just leave Hilo there. So they're like, we're not going to get anything out of this idiot anyway. So they just leave him there to die, and Cerberus gets all killed there. That's when Kali and Hendel and Jillian take off with Lem, the Quarian. Paul Grayson gets to that facility a little bit later to see what's going on and where his daughter is and all that. He gets there, and he finds Hilo like in the basement or something, and he kind of explains how he looks, that he basically doesn't have his helmet anymore, and he didn't know what Quarians looked like, but you can't really, he didn't really have his helmet on, but you couldn't even tell what he was anymore because of how bad they injured him, how he had a bunch of infections and stuff. and he was just, all he was muttering was he kept on saying this one thing, and Grayson was like, what the hell is he saying? And he realized that it was the code that the Quarians used to get into the flotilla. And he also was saying the number of his ship. And Grayson was like, oh my god. So that's where he realizes where Kali is going, and they use that code. Because they're like, this is it. This is what gets you into the flotilla. So while Kali and Hendel and all them are on the flotilla, Cerberus comes with Golo, the Quarian, and he's the one that says the call sign, or the code. And they let him in. The Quarians let him in because they don't know that it's anything else. It's a Quarian trying to get in. That's how the Edina gets attacked within the flotilla by Cerberus. Kali and them do end up escaping because Paul Grayson at the end helps them instead of taking his daughter with him, because he's like, this is wrong. They're gonna end up killing her, Jillian. So he's just like, you know what, just leave, and he lets them go. The Edina gets bashed, and a lot of Quarians died, and it was just bad. And do you guys remember in Mass Effect 2 the whole issue with the Quarians when you meet Tali on Freedom's Progress and Cerberus, how they're like, we're not gonna work for Cerberus and all this, and Miranda is like, oh, blah, 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 whatever, it wasn't personal. That's what the feud was. What happened in Ascension, the whole attack on the Edina by Cerberus, that's why they were mad. That's why they were like, they infiltrated our ships and all that. That's what they were talking about, what happened in Ascension. The captain of Edina, they called him Mal, and he was the only Quarian at the time that was trying to find another place, another planet that they could inhabit, and not just sit there and see what happens. He was the one that was like, we have to go look for planets for us to live in. It's something, we can't just sit here. So after this, after Cerberus attacked the fleet, that's when the Quarians were like, you know what, he's right. We can't just sit here. We've got to find a place, because it was a bad sign, and it didn't go well. So that's where the whole issue starts in Mass Effect 2, when all the admirals are like talking about going to look for a planet other than Rannoch to live in, trying to go and fight the Geth, and that's where this whole thing starts. Captain Mal was the first one that was questioning these things and saying, we can't just sit here. We got to do something. So I pretty much wanted to mention in my opinion, the most important things about the Quarian society. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I know there's probably more. I wanted to talk about Haystrom, but I think I'm going to leave that for when I talk about the Geth next Friday, because I think the Geth have a little bit more to do with Haystrom than the Quarians do. So yeah, I find the Quarians super interesting. That's one of the things that I'm so excited about when it comes to Mass Effect 3, is the whole Quarian involvement. You being able to go into the flotilla and actually talk military strategy and not just be defending Tali. I've always wanted to actually, do more on the flotilla, and actually see the Quarians in military zone, fighting. And then being able to go on the planet Rannoch, because they already said that you are going to be able to go on Rannoch. The whole issue with the Geth and the Quarians, oh my god, that's one of the things that I'm mostly looking forward to when it comes to Mass Effect 3. So I hope you found this interesting, because I really think that the Quarians are one of the most amazing races when it comes to Mass Effect. Especially because of what they've been through and the limitations that they have, but their strong sense of survival. It's awesome. Look forward to next Mass Effect talks, because I am going to join these two, because they are related. And thank you again to the person that mentioned this topic, because I really hadn't thought of it of doing this until later. So I'm glad that you mentioned it, because you pretty much motivated me to doing it. So thank you again. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And I'll talk to you guys later.